Okay.
We got Spenser Mango here. He's a two-time Olympian, been on the world team a billion times, I think, based on what I saw. And he's also got some of the coolest throws you'd ever look up on YouTube. I've had a lot of kids bring me videos, be like, look at this guy, look at this throw. And I've been like, yeah, that dude's from Missouri. You guys know that, right? So anyway, thanks for talking to us.
Thanks for.
First off, just tell people what you're up to now.
Right now, I'm just at home with the family and the kids, trying to make the best of a tough situation, and trying to stay active and keeping the guys active.
Yeah. What are you telling your guys to do right now that obviously can't wrestle? What advice
Right,
you give them?
we're posting like home workouts that they can do. Some guys have equipment at home, so we'll post a workout for guys with equipment. Some guys don't have any, so we'll post another workout for guys without equipment. And right now, just trying to get your runs in and staying active. A lot of guys are doing like a lot of home remodeling and all that. I'm not that guy. I'd much rather pay somebody to do that. But yeah, a lot of that's going on.
So obviously Greco, it's like closely associated with the Olympics and the Olympic styles. What did you tell your guys as far as how to adjust accordingly, considering the Olympics got postponed for a year?
A lot of our guys, they're really disciplined. So for them, they were a little let down, but like I said, you can't really do anything about it right now. So you really can't focus any like negative energy on it. Just kind of work on the stuff you can control, and that's getting your workouts in and staying active. And then for other guys, it was actually really good for us because we have some guys with injuries, so they're actually able to heal up and they'll be back to 100% by the time the Olympics roll around. So I think overall it was a kind of a good thing for us.
Yeah. All right, I just want to talk about your career a little bit because it's interesting. We're going to go back to like high school. So
Okay.
I know that I've heard that you didn't start wrestling until high school. Is that true?
That is true. Freshman year.
That's pretty crazy. So tell us how you got into wrestling.
I was actually walking down the hall at CBC High School, and freshman wrestling coach was outside, and he was trying to get people to sign up. And he's like, "Hey, sign up to the wrestling team." And people are just walking by. So I'm like 88 pounds with a backpack about the same size, and I tried to skirt it past him, and he ran over and picked me up, and he's like, "Hey, you want to wrestle 90 pounds on the freshman team?" And I was like, okay, sure, I'm not doing anything. So I got my little permission slip signed, and then I remember the first day of practice like it was yesterday. I was always a football player, so I was just tackling guys left and right. And I remember the coach put me in a group of 4, and I was like, "You want me to wrestle those 3 guys?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay." So yeah, he's like, nice double leg," and I'm just tackling them like I would in football, and I kind of got hooked from there. I was always playing against guys that were bigger than me in football, and then wrestling, I got to wrestle against guys that were my size. So I kind of took to it.
Did you feel like did you take to it naturally as far as like, were you, I mean, what was the process like when you were first starting? Did you realize like, oh, I'm kind of good at this? Or were you just like a lot of normal people who are like, man, I suck?
No, I don't know. I guess because I was naturally stronger than most of the guys I was wrestling. So, not knowing anything and being at the freshman level wrestling, strength plays a part at that level, So I did all right. I think I didn't lose any at 90 pounds. I think I lost 1 at 95, and then I lost 1 match at 103 on the freshman team. So, I thought I was the best wrestler in the world. And then sophomore year, I was on varsity, and then I got a rude awakening, So yeah, but it helped. I found some success right from the start, and I think that helped out too. It was fun because I was winning.
That's a pretty crazy transition. So you were on the freshman team, and then your sophomore year you were on varsity and you qualified for state, right? And then
right,
your junior year you won state, right?
Right.
That's a pretty crazy upward trajectory. So I mean, how did that happen? Did you realize at the time that was such a crazy quick like improvement, or were you just like, oh, cool?
No, I didn't. I guess at the time I didn't realize how quick the improvement was happening, but I just knew that I wanted to be the best. So, I tried to find wrestling anywhere I could, try to get to every tournament. Coach Brian Jackson, Missouri Baptist, he
Yep.
was coaching Team St. Louis then. And I remember I was on the dial-up internet searching, like freestyle clubs. I heard about this freestyle stuff. So I was like, I'll give that a try. So I'm looking for clubs, and I find this club online. So I go the first day and I see Coach Jackson. And I was like, this guy's the wrestling coach? And then I was looking at him, and then, and then I don't know, man. We clicked. He took me under his wing. We were traveling in his what did he have back there? Like a Ford Expedition or something. And we'd go to tournaments, and I was hitting tournaments every weekend. And I remember at first when I started going there, I was getting killed. I was in a group of 3, and I forgot everybody's name by now, but it was a guy from like St. Charles West that was like killing me, and it was some like 8th grader that was killing me. And then I slowly started learning. I remember my mom picked me up one night from practice, and she's like, man, your lips busted, your nose is bleeding. Like, you want to keep doing this wrestling stuff? I'm like, yeah, Mom, I'm getting so much better. Like, the guy texted me last week, and this week I scored a point. So I just kind of stuck with it. And then I guess all the practice and matches and drilling paid off, and I was able to find success fairly quickly.
Have you ever met someone else, or have you talked to other guys who have gotten, not maybe even to your level, but like a pretty high level of wrestling, like the senior level wrestling, who started as late as you? Have you met many people with that experience, or?
Only a couple that have started in high school. Man, I forget who it is now, but one guy I talked to, he started like his sophomore year, and I was like, wow, now you're like a senior level wrestler, like a legit senior level wrestler. He's like, yeah, I love it. And I don't know, I think that's like a big part of it, just passion for the sport, and wanting to get better, even though you maybe it doesn't always go your way, but just trying to find a positive out of it, and keep working and get a little bit better every day.
Yeah. So after high school, or during high school too, you obviously were wrestling freestyle and Greco. So at what point did you realize that Greco was going to be your preferred avenue of wrestling?
Actually, not until my senior year at Fargo. So I was already signed to go to another school, and Coach Ivan Ivanov at Northern Michigan University came up to me. He's like, hey, you should come to Northern Michigan. And I was like, nah, I'm good, man. He's like, no, he wrestled Greco. We're going to travel the world. You got to get a passport, full tuition, scholarship reward. And I'm like, man, this is too good to be true. So I'm like brushing him off the whole Fargo tournament, trying to avoid him. He's like that car salesman that like keeps trying to tell you like about these great deals. And he finally caught me in the stands with my mom, and he's like sat us down and showed us all this information, the brochures and all that. And I was like, wow, this like sounds like a legit opportunity. You go to school for free, and you get to travel the world, and you get to kind of skip the NCAA level, which I didn't wrestle as a kid, so the NCAA's wasn't that big of a deal to me. I know a lot of kids that like they want to be an NCAA champ. That really wasn't like a huge goal for me. So I was like, man, I could focus solely on the Olympics and get the degree at the same time. So I actually told him, I was like, all right, I'm coming to Northern Michigan. And I think it was like end of July, maybe like right around the beginning of August, I applied, and I was there like 3 weeks later.
What this is kind of a weird question, but let's imagine an alternate, path where, what if you had gone to college and wrestled folk style somewhere? What do you think that would have looked like for you?
I don't know. I guess I don't know, being arrogant, I think I would have been successful either way, but just because that's something I always passion myself is, working hard to be the best. But it's tough to say. I don't really know. I'm definitely not as good in folk style just because, I'm not as good on the mat. But yeah, I still thought I would have been successful.
I was thinking with your ability to improve the way you shun it, like it would have been interesting to see what that might have looked like for you.
Right.
I was going to ask, hang on, let me make sure here. Oh, so obviously club coaches, high school coaches, we're constantly trying to get kids to wrestle in the off season and wrestle
Right.
freestyle and Greco. And a lot of kids are receptive to wrestling both, but most of them are like, oh, I don't know anything about Greco. I want to do freestyle. and I think they don't realize that like everybody can wrestle freestyle because they've all wrestled folk style. So, but
Right.
if you were trying to, and obviously you do this in your job, but if you were trying to pitch wrestling Greco to somebody, I mean, how would you do that?
I honestly, I think wrestling Greco makes you so much better of a freestyler and folk styler. Wrestling's wrestling. Once you learn how to control people's ties, you're comfortable with staying close to people. You're okay with being in chest to chest and being able to lock your hands and throw somebody. You're much more dangerous, and I think you become much more successful wrestler by wrestling Greco. I My own experience after I did it, I came back and wrestled some folk style, and man, it's a world of difference being able to control the hand fight and freestyle and folk style, being able to wrestle Greco.
Yeah, we, me and Jesse have talked about this before, but guys who wrestle Greco and are successful in it, and guys that are good at throwing people, they've kind of got like a little bit of a different mentality than some wrestlers. They're
Right,
very brave, basically.
right,
They're very
yeah,
ballsy, if you will.
yeah.
So you're obviously known, you and your brother are both known for throwing people big time. So, what's your mindset about that? I guess. I mean, how do you be fearless in these positions, throwing people like that?
Well, I think it starts at practice. Starts with drilling. Coach Yvonne, I never really, I guess, solely wrestled Greco before I went to Northern Michigan, and he'd get the crash pads out for us. Some of the freshmen that didn't really know how to throw that well, and he'd have us doing throws after practice. We'd drill them in practice. We'd drill them after practice. We get our reps in, and just kind of getting over that fear of I'm gonna hurt myself by throwing somebody. Once you learn the proper technique, it's really safe. I got hurt way different ways than throwing people or getting thrown. But yeah, it's just not having that fear. Like once you lock your hands and going with it, once you do it a few times in practice and then you kind of get the hang of it, you lose that fear and you can kind of do it at will.
Yeah.
Since you're bringing Yvonne up, could you tell us a little bit about what maybe sets him apart from some of the other coaches that you've had? Because like talking with Jake Fisher and stuff, he talks about how great he is, and I don't think a lot of people know who he is, or they know who he is, but they don't know a lot about him. I mean, can you just talk about him a little bit and maybe what sets him apart as one of the better coaches that you've had? You freeze.
Oh, froze.
Yeah, no, Yvonne's a master of wrestling. He could take a first year wrestler, or he could take a senior world medalist, and he can efficiently coach them all. And he's one of those guys who he's not like, okay, you have to do it this way. He'll tell you to make your own style, and he'll work with you from there, and he'll develop things that you can use personally for your own style. So Ivan, and he's super creative. He's got his suplex system, his throwing dummies, his Bulgarian bags, his slam balls, everything. So he's got one of those wrestling minds. He's always thinking about ways he can improve drilling, improve certain techniques, and tailor it to a specific wrestler. And he always just say, he doesn't want cookie cutter wrestlers in his room. He wants everybody to develop their own style and make something theirs. So that's what I think kind of sets him apart.
That's interesting, because I feel like in Greco, people kind of have set things in mind. So it's kind of
right.
Me and Jesse have talked before about how it feels for normal, wrestling kids and coaches. It feels hard to have people like play wrestling Greco or
right.
real Greco. What I'm saying? It's hard. So how do you do that? How do you help people develop creativity in Greco?
Actually, one of the things Yvonne used to have us do, he'd take a guy, say you had a number one guy in your room, he's the best Greco guy in the room. So he'd take a guy that maybe doesn't know as much, or is kind of still learning, and he'd put them together and he'd say, okay, now the top guy, you can only do this move. You need to work on your arm drag. All right. I don't care how you get to it, just get to your arm drag. And then he'd tell the guy who's just learning, okay, hey, whatever you do, don't let him get to your arm drag. Mm-hmm. And that way, both guys can work. And the good guy, he's like, well, I got to find a different way to get to my arm drag than maybe I normally do, or, figure out what works for me. And then the guy that's learning, he's just like, okay, you know what? This guy's going to do one move. I just have to stop this. Once I learn how to stop this arm drag, then I can kind of move on from there. So, I think that's a a good example of how you can kind of play wrestle in Greco. But like you said, it is hard. When coach tells you to go 70%, you're like, well, what's 70% in Greco?
Yeah. It's
I want
just
to keep my elbows in.
Yeah. We've even
I don't want to get thrown.
Yeah, we've even talked about the fact that it's hard in Greco to drill at not when you're not full speed. You're not getting the right
Right.
pressure and things like that.
Right.
And we've had those talks with Coach Mayab too about. He said, when you get to a high level, that's when you can really start to play wrestle. And
Right.
that's always been the thing where like, well, it's hard to get kids to even drill right in Greco, so
Right.
it's good to hear that take about that too, because I think that strategy gives the lower level kids something to really focus on and hone in on, and maybe like a skill that they can achieve in a practice or a week or something.
Right.
So.
Right.
So you've wrestled obviously tons of foreign guys, and people say this for all styles of wrestling, but in Greco, do the foreigners that you wrestle, do they have a different feel than Americans, I guess, when you're wrestling Greco?
Yes, they do. You go over to the Asian countries, they can throw from anywhere, and they can also like cartwheel out of throws. So they're like super athletic when it comes to throwing and defending throws. You get to the Europeaners, they can pummel. It's hard to get them out of position. They're really good in parterre. They're hard to turn. They're hard to stop. So yeah, their style's a little different. And I think like going overseas, it took a little bit to adjust all the time. In America, we're not as deep in Greco, so you can get away with technique that's not I guess like top technique. You can do some technique that not isn't going to work in Europe or Asia, but it'll work here. So you get ingrained in doing that bad technique, and then you get over to Europe, and it's not that we don't know how to do good technique. It's just that we haven't been forced to do it every single time the right way. So yeah, they do have a different style and a little different feel, but it's nothing you can't adjust to. It's just getting that time and that opportunity to train with them, and being able to try to transition from okay, I got to do it the right way all the time, from like, oh, I can do it this way and it's going to work against this guy.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna hit a couple quicker questions for you, just kind of outside the box, I guess. But
Okay.
Who was your favorite wrestler? Who is your favorite wrestler to watch? As like a fan, or as just they interest you?
Any style?
Yeah.
Okay. In Greco, I'll say Tazmuradov. He's from Uzbekistan. He's super fun to watch. Hits like 4-point chin whips in Greco, and you get to his body, and he's still dangerous. You have him like dead in the water, and then he'll find a way to score. I like him. He's super exciting. And then freestyle. Ooh, U.S. We have so many great freestylers. I'm gonna have to say I'll go with Jaden Cox, fellow Missouri guy.
Yeah, there you go. You've obviously wrestled a lot of people, both in training room and matches, but does anyone stand out as someone you wrestled maybe multiple times that you were like, I really don't want to wrestle this guy? Not because you don't like him or anything, just like they're hard to wrestle. Who's your least favorite person to wrestle?
Ooh, in the U.S., probably it was Jermaine Hodge, because he's a fellow Army guy. He coaches the women's team with the Army right now. I knew every match he was gonna like try to beat me up, and also Nate was hard to wrestle just because we're like best friends, and you got to put that on pause and go out there and wrestle against each other. That always sucks.
You said you too, by the way. So there you go. You guys can give each other some props.
Yeah, but I'd say for the U.S. guys, those two are definitely one of the harder two to wrestle.
Yeah. You went on a bunch of trips whenever you were in high school, and obviously you went to Fargo and everything. So we try to like tie this back to Missouri. What are your memories of wrestling in the spring and summer? You kind of hit on it earlier with Jackson, but from some of those Missouri USA trips you went on back in the day.
Oh, I remember going to the duels. I think it was the junior duels. I want to say it was the summer of my sophomore year. I wrestled Devin Fieger in the freestyle state finals, and I beat him. And I remember they were saying he was like really good. And they were like, okay, well, you want to go to the duels? And I didn't even know what the duels were. So went to the duels, and I think I won my first match. And I was like, oh, this is easy. And I lost like 14 matches straight after that. I got killed. But yeah, I remember that. And then of course, the Fargo trips, those are always so much fun with, just all the wrestlers, the best wrestlers from around the state. You never really get to, well, at least I didn't. Maybe other guys did. I never get to hang out with them, because the St. Louis side, we didn't have as many wrestlers going to Fargo as, I guess, Kansas City. But, just hanging out with those guys to kind of get to know them, and then, battling the mosquitoes in Fargo, and, trying to go deep into that tournament, and that old bracketing system.
Yeah, you did pretty good with that, though. Jesse, you want to ask him our final question here?
Yeah. Do you just have any story, any wrestling story that sticks out to you? It could be weird, funny, great story that sticks out to you over your career. You probably got a bunch.
Yeah, I got a few, but this one's a little gross. But so we were
a lot of these have been gross, just so you know.
Yeah.
That's all right.
We were in Chile at the Pan Am Championships, and we went out for a team dinner. It was like, I don't know, like 4 days before the tournament. And I remember I got the Chilean sea bass. So I ate the sea bass. I was like, wow, that was really good. Went back to the hotel. Then I was sitting on my bed like the next morning, and the sheets were white. And I'm looking down after I got up, and it was like this like kind of oily looking spot. And I was like, what is that? So I'm like smelling it. Me and my roommate are putting our fingers in it and like smelling our fingers. We're like, what is that? I was like, I don't know. I must have sat in something. So I'm like walking around the neck later that evening, and, I keep feeling like it's something leaking out of me. And I was like, what is going on? So I realized that it's actually coming from my body. So I Googled Chilean sea bass, and I read that it's actually like in some countries, like poor countries, they use this other fish that's like super oily that doesn't sit well in some people's bodies. So the sea bass was actually it was like oil coming out of me. And I had to sleep with a hotel towel in my underwear. And then I had to wrestle like 2 days later. So it was quite the trip. And yeah, to this day, I've never had Chilean sea bass ever again.
Leakage. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
Oh man, you'd be surprised how many of these stories we've got have something to do with some sort of bathroom issue. By the way, it's a common thread for us. All right, we'll let you go for today, Spenser. I really appreciate it. Thanks for talking to us. And
no problem. Thanks for having me.
Stay safe and everything else. All right.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
See you, man.
Goodbye.